Would you like to live long? It's never too late. Welcome to the Eat Plants, Feel Whole podcast, a program designed to help you harness the healing power of plants and transform your health. I'm your host, Todd Chobatar. I serve as the publisher and editor-in-chief of Advent Health Press. Today, we're talking to lifestyle medicine specialist, Dr. George Guthrie, about his book, Eat Plants, Feel Whole. Welcome, Dr. Guthrie.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Dr. Guthrie, today we're talking about the topic of longevity. And there's very few of us that wouldn't agree with the statement, yes, I would love to live longer and healthier. How does that tie into eating plants, or does it?
Let's talk about living long.
Okay.
Because some might want to live long. I like to respond to the question, it depends, right? I want a high-quality life for a time. Nothing would be worse, I think, to have a stroke, be unable to move, be stuck in a nursing home for 20 or 30 years, having other people care for me. I call that the dwindles.
I'd have to agree, and I've seen that happen.
Oh, we all have, just too much. What we'd like to have is we would like to live very healthy and then go to sleep one day and not wake up, right? So it's a high quality of life. Sometimes that's referred to as squaring out the curve. Instead of the dwindles kind of coming down, it's like live well and then go to sleep and not wake up.
Drop off at the end.
Drop off. So it's really quality of life we're talking about, quality and length, but quality is probably the more important concept there.
Now, you have a family story that ties into that concept.
I do. It's a fascinating sort of a thing. The story kind of came to me when I got married. That is, my wife's family, rather interesting sort of a thing. Her grandmother was widowed at around 85 years of age. And I mean, just a plump and wonderful grandma, right?
You used a term before that I remember called fluffy.
Fluffy is another good one. Okay, nothing quite like sitting on grandma's lap. Well, grandpa had died. Grandma now kind of alone. So her daughter, now my mother-in-law, says, "Come live with me, mother." Well, grandma had angina, so she carried the nitroglycerin, she had the chest pain. Her blood sugars were elevated. She was quite fluffy. So she had what we've talked about before here, that metabolic syndrome, and it just looked like kind of end of life. Now, my mother-in-law, kind of learning about some healthful things, decided to put it into practice for grandma. So grandma was placed on a plant-based diet. She was encouraged to we can talk more about this later, cut down or eliminate the evening meal. Oh. 2 meals a day.
Two meals a day.
We now call it intermittent fasting.
I've heard that term.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe we can cover a little more about that later.
Okay.
And then she started to exercise. And my mother-in-law described seeing her go down the front stairs and kind of head around the block. And she'd, walk 50 paces or so, stop, kind of grab her chest, reach into her pocket, pull out her nitroglycerin, put it under her tongue, and kind of slowly relax. And am I killing my mother? Sort of a thing. But what happened with time is that her weight started to come down, her chest pain went away, her blood sugars normalized, and she became much more active and had an incredible quality of life. At 85, you might think that's a little old. She actually lived to 103.
Wow.
And died of pneumonia. Those chronic diseases really disappeared with the lifestyle change.
So that last decade and a half
was much better quality. Now, by the time she lost her hearing and needed to have her cataracts replaced, those last 2 or 3 years, it was a little bit of a challenge. But she really squared out the curve.
Yeah.
She didn't have kind of those dwindles. She was active and aggressive and going out and doing things. I still remember when I was dating my wife, visiting, and there's grandma, and she's well into her 90s and feeling well. And my father-in-law was managing a retirement center, and grandma would come out and she'd say, "I'm going to visit the old folks." Well, who are you visiting? "Oh, Mrs. Green." "How old is she?" "Oh, she's 83. "Mother, how old are you?" Who's the old person here? Well, it was a quality of life issue. And
I like the mindset as well. The mindset in that I'm going to visit the old people and not considering yourself one. I like that.
Good positive attitude makes a big difference as well. Sure. So that's an example that it's really not too late to start making those changes. The sooner you make them, the faster it takes place, the easier it is. But you can make a huge difference. The question has been asked, is it ever too late? And, it's kind of hard for us to do scientific studies as human beings on other human beings. So we've kind of looked to other species to try to understand. And I remember trying to search out this question once in the past, saying, is it ever too late? Well, the best study I found was done on fruit flies.
On fruit flies?
Yes. Now, fruit flies have
a very short lifespan.
It's only about 5 days, and that's about it.
So you can do a lot of studies on fruit flies.
But interestingly enough, they found that by decreasing the calories, we would call it kind of a calorie limitation, if you will.
Okay, all right.
Those fruit flies would live longer if you did that, after they had first hatched and kind of grown up. So if you did it on the second day, they'd live longer. If you did it on the third day, they'd live longer again, same length of time. Fourth day, if you did it on the fifth day, they'd still live out longer. So in the fruit flies, it was never too late. I don't know that we can make that an automatic kind of comparison to humans, but it seems to be that physiologically, things that are alive tend to do better with that caloric restriction.
Now, that's a very interesting thing because when you talk about caloric restriction, first of all, that sounds maybe not painful, but it doesn't sound like something that I necessarily want to go for, right? So...
what's the logic?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me the logic behind
The logic is rather complex, and I'll try to put it in fairly simple terms.
I need that. Thank you.
So each cell in our body makes a lot of, these things we call free radicals, the things that damage. They damage DNA, they damage protein, they damage things. There's backup systems to do repair. Each cell in the body, and it depends on who you read, 100,000 to 1 million, I've even seen more than that estimated, of these free radicals every day in our normal life. We have systems that manage those free radicals and try to get rid of them for us.
Because they're doing damage.
If we make a lot of them, it's harder to catch all of them, and there's more likely to be an accidental damage. So one of the most kind of popular and among those that study longevity theories about longevity is if you can decrease the number of free radicals, you can decrease the damage, and our cells may very well live longer. So less damage and do better. So what makes the difference? Well, when you eat too many calories, the body makes more of the free radicals. It's trying to, for example, turn that extra energy. Body doesn't want to gain weight. It'll try to fight that, and it does that by making heat. And that, of course, creates more of these free radicals, which makes more chance for damage. Now, this gets kind of interesting. One of the phrases from the literature is diabetes, one of the diseases we've been talking about, is accelerated aging.
Now, I remember reading about that in your book. That seemed like an odd statement.
It tends to come from too many calories in and not enough calories out. The physiologic response is kind of to turn into the diabetes and, yes, the heart disease, and those things all tend to come together. So by moving to the caloric restriction side, not only do you help avoid those diseases, and indeed many of them can be reversed, but you also help yourself live longer and healthier.
It makes me think of a quote from C. Everett Koop that kind of ties into that, because we're talking about the kind of inputs that we have on food. And he said this: your choice of diet can influence your long-term health prospects more than any other action you might take. Now, this is a former Surgeon General.
Sure, and that's logical. That fits with the science that we know. Certainly, there are some genetic components, maybe 15, 20%, but most of it is really our eating patterns. So, once you put out, infectious diseases and those types of things, as far as longevity. And it's never really too late to change. As you make those changes, the health benefits come. I like to say, you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you got.
Okay, so I like that phrase. I want to remember that because that's actually one of the chapter titles of your book.
Yes, it's a good phrase. If you keep doing the standard American diet, you're going to get the standard American diseases, okay? And if you're willing to make some changes, you can have improvement. What is the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results?
I've heard that before, yes.
In many ways, modern medicine wants us to do the same thing over and over again and try to fix it with pills. But it really is insanity. What we need to do is change our lifestyle.
And change that root cause of the problem rather than just trying to mask it with pills or some kind of medication that's going to get us there. Very interesting. So if you were to give our listeners today kind of one takeaway, so something that I could do today, if I say to myself, okay, I get it, I'd like to live longer. I hear what you're saying, that decreasing the calories might be one way to go. But you mentioned a little earlier about even possibly reducing the number of meals in a day, or this intermittent fasting. So tell me a little bit about that.
So it ends up that our body does repairs and tends to do better if we give it some time where there's no food coming in. It generally takes 8 to 12 hours to reach the fasting state. So if we're going to intermittently fast, that is, have a little bit of fast time each day, we need to have some time between that last meal and when we take the next one. The best time to do that is when you're asleep at night. So if you have breakfast and then have a good lunch, maybe 12, 1 o'clock, and then not eat until the next morning, you actually reach that fasting state. You gain the benefits from that to the efficiency to the cells. You're also eating fewer meals, so you're not going to necessarily eat as much. As many calories, especially if you move to plant-based. We've talked a little bit about this in the past as well, how things like beans and the plants help to spread the energy out so you don't find yourself starving just before you go to bed, right? So that's a really good way to help improve longevity, and it was one of the tools that my mother-in-law gave to her mother to help her live longer. By the way, that mother-in-law of mine, okay, at age 35, she had her own health problems and made similar changes: 2 meals a day, the plant-based diet, lots of exercise. She lives with us still. She's in a couple more weeks, she'll be 103.
Oh, congratulations to her.
And her mind is still clear.
Yeah.
So she can, there's a little bit of memory slipping, but she's got a great sense of humor, and it's still great to have around. So that quality of life makes a big difference.
Does make a big difference. Wow. Okay, so the takeaway for today then would be, if we're talking about positive lifestyle changes, one could be intermittent fasting, which basically means reducing to 2 meals a day, right? And giving your body a chance for that kind of longer break. Now, what if somebody says, I have a hard time transitioning to that because I find I'm getting too hungry in the evenings?
Since you're pushing me on that, it may not be for everybody. Okay. If someone does a heavy physical work, if they're ditch digging all day, then I don't know that it's best that they stop that third meal. They should make it smaller. I think that would be better. And certainly weight should be maintained. But that increased physical activity can really help. So other people, especially those like you and I, who tend to sit most of the time looking at computers.
I resemble that remark.
It's a good idea for us to reach that fasting state because it helps our body do that repair. It takes a little while. Your body, your physiology gets used to it. In 7 to 10 days, though, it generally flows quite well.
Very good. Now, we have some free resources, or I should say that you do, in the back of your book. And speaking of longevity, which is our topic for today, there is a report. It's a special report that you offer for free as a bonus. I have a copy of your book here in my hands right now, and it's part of the special bonuses that you offer in the book. It's a special report called Let's Talk About Cancer. What can you tell me about this special report?
Well, this special report is taking a look at some of the common cancers and kind of recalibrating our look at it. For example, we have some evidence, for example, that prostate cancer can be reversed with the plant-based diet and the stress management and the caloric management. So it might be a good idea for people to take a look at it. We spent a little more time, I think, on both breast cancer and prostate cancer as the more common ones. Not so much there about colon cancer, but certainly our colon thrives when we have a lot of plants. The fiber is beneficial. So it may be helpful for some people as they think about how end-of-life issues.
Very good. Very good. So, folks can get this free report if they go to eatplantsfeelwhole.com and sign up for the free newsletter, and then this is one of the bonuses that they can receive.
Excellent.
So, Dr. Guthrie, thank you so much for sharing with us today. You've been listening to the Eat Plants, Feel Whole podcast. This is a limited edition, 15-part series where our goal is to help you to harness the healing power of plants and transform your health. I've been your host, Todd Chobatar, and if you'd like to find out more about Dr. Guthrie and his work, you can visit eatplantsfeelwhole.com. And if you'd like to discover other great resources to help you feel whole in mind, in body, and in spirit, then please visit adventhealthpress.com. While you're there, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter that has healthy living tips, some leadership wisdom, and also regular giveaways. Thanks so much for joining us today.